Hello again, Rowdy Rangers. On this video I like to talk about the new meta for Ranger as far as his best weapons this time in EDF 5. He received quite a few changes, and I would say mostly for the better, for sure, for Ranger. So let's go ahead and get started here. As far as the old meta, let's talk about the old meta first. Ranger didn't have too many options, it felt like, in 2025 4.1, because it seemed like his weapons were mainly the go-to was AF-100. Let's talk about mainly Inferno. AF-100 or the AF-ST series machine gun, where AF-100 was more of like just your standard machine gun, and then the AF-ST was like I think it was like a 10-round magazine, but it had a huge range and it did a lot of damage, but it didn't shoot as fast as a machine gun. So usually those were his two main weapons he would take, almost always had to take on serious missions. And then as far as your other weapon, that's where you would change based on mission to mission. Usually what you would do is you would take for range, he was a very good sniper in 4.1. He would usually take two Lysanders, the best snipers, and then what you would do is you would shoot one, and then you would switch to the other one, shoot the other one, switch to the other one, and it would kind of like counter the fact that you only could shoot one every 3 seconds. So being able to take two of the same sniper rifles and just shoot switch was pretty high damage per second, and he was probably the easiest one to snipe with. He wasn't necessarily the best sniper because of the monster and just other sniper options, the Gungnir for the wing diver, but he was a very easy sniper class and a very consistent sniper, and was pretty useful as a sniper role. As far as his missile launchers, they were very average in EDF 4. The problem was the damage on Inferno. They weren't terrible on the lower difficulties, but on the higher difficulties, like for example the MEX Emerald, the best homing missile launcher, just wasn't enough damage and wasn't enough lock-ons. His rocket launchers were very average as well in EDF 4. They weren't anything special. They were okay, but just depends on the mission. People would take the Stampede once in a while, which did make it back in this game. It was pretty good in the previous game. The only negative was, of course, the reload time was 6 seconds, but it was useful for certain missions. Also, there was a big fireball that was very, very useful in EDF 4 as well, which has made it back. And that was always good for underground and for crowd control, so forth like that. Actually, the highest DPS weapon for Ranger in EDF 4 was the Super Acid Gun, which has made it back here, up here. Very low level 58, but it was very high damage for that game. Very high damage per second. The problem was the range of it. It was like had a very arcing shot, so it was a little bit hard to use, but it was definitely the highest DPS for Ranger in that game. The Burst Firecracker was also very good in EDF 4 because of just being able to use like a Stampede shot over and over again without having to reload, which has also made it back in this game. And Healing Bomb was good in EDF 4, and that has also made it back. So those are his main go-tos, his main meta in the old game. But now let's talk about the new game and the new changes that they made with Ranger class, which is very, very promising in my opinion. I will talk about the DLC stuff at the end. I'm just mainly covering the campaign stuff here first. The first major change to Ranger is the machine guns. This time around he has a lot more options to use for machine guns, which is pretty nice. I really like the variety of the machine guns. For example, like this machine gun shoots explosive shots, explosive rounds that stick to a target, and then they blow up. And one thing they made different to the machine guns this time around is range actually makes a difference. Like in the previous game it did not, but the further you are in this game from the enemy, the less damage the machine guns do. Like say for example this Gatling type machine gun has a very high damage fall off, whereas at max range it does, looks like what, 1/3 the damage, whereas the G&M series at max range it only does just a little bit less damage. So there's a variety as far as the machine guns. The standard AF-100 made it back, which is the T series here, and also there's like an AK-47 one that came in this time, which is slower rate of fire, more damage up close, very high damage fall off. And just a lot of variety of machine guns. So if it wasn't for the change in shotguns, machine guns probably would be his best weapon. But considering that the change in shotguns are so drastic, machine guns definitely pale this time around, even though they're a lot better. However, I would say the meta for Ranger as far as machine guns go would be the G&M series here. Like I said earlier, the damage fall-off is very minimal. As you can see, at max range it only does a little bit over 100 less damage per shot. The thing with this is it shoots through targets, so that makes it very strong. It has good range, 543 meters, and it shoots very fast. But the negative is you have to pull the trigger somehow 12 times per second, which obviously can be very tricky because that's a lot of times per second. But pretty much it's as fast as you can pull the trigger, this gun will shoot. So ideally, this thing could do over 6,000 damage per second, but you're probably not going to get that because, like I said, you have to pull the trigger 12 times per second. Let's go ahead and take one of those because that is one of his best machine guns. But like I was saying before, the shotguns are king this time around. They are absolutely ridiculous. And it took me a while to figure this out when I first started playing because shotguns were pretty bad in EDF 4. The Governor was okay, but it was just a slow rate of fire and a small magazine, long reload. Sparrow shot, it was okay, but it wasn't very high DPS compared to the machine gun AF-100 and the range. But this time, every shotgun except one shoots through targets. So these things do monster damage up close, in addition to the fact that they shoot more than one target. And since Ranger is a slower class, and enemies are always charging him, he's able to fight close range very effectively now, which I'm very, very happy with because that was his one weakness. And since he was a slow class, not being able to fight close range kind of was pretty rough. So anyway, as far as the shotguns go, there's so many options. The best all-around shotgun is usually the let's see where they're at. It's usually the E series, the E23 SAS, the ones that look like this, pretty much this E23 series is probably the best as far as his lower level shotguns because they have good range and they do decent damage and the reload time is relatively decent, like under 3 seconds. So usually you're going to be taking the E series for the lower levels, unless of course you want very, very high burst damage. Then there's the Governor has also made it back, which is called something else. I think it's called the Breacher or something, the Breacher shotgun. But this is like the Governor, where it does one huge shot, but it has a longer reload, and it has a very short range. So it's either between the E series or the D series, which is like your one big shot if you need some close range damage. And then of course the best level one of the E series is called the EZ, which is over here, and this is your best all-around average shotgun. Does good damage per second, got good range, and a 2.6 second reload, so very good. So I would either take the EZ shotgun or the D110 for Inferno if I need really high burst damage up close. And there is a time and place actually for a third shotgun, which is this shotgun right here, the fast reload shotgun. It reloads under a second, and you can constantly deal out damage with this thing. It's lower damage per second, but the thing is you can always be firing, and it fires fast. And because of the reload time so short, you can always be putting shots on target, so therefore you can always stun enemies. You know, if you never have to worry about reloading is the main thing of this shotgun. So let's go ahead and take the D110, and let's go ahead and just take it in a mission really quickly and show this thing off briefly. I'm going to take this mission here, 30 something, yeah, this one. So I find myself using shotguns just about all the time in my setup, so I would say shotguns is a major part of the new meta for Ranger because it's just so good. The G&M is nice that it does have a zoom on it, and like I said, you have to pull the trigger very fast, but it has great range. It's almost like a sniper rifle in its range and its accuracy, and pretty good damage. So and shoot through targets. So I'll take the G&M once in a while if I need a good range, but mainly I'm taking a shotgun just because of how great this thing is. And as you'll be able to see, the D110 is the large one shot that's 110 projectiles and it shoots through targets. But all its shotguns shoot through targets, so absolutely amazing now. And since you're going to be dealing at close range most of the time, shotguns are just king this time around. And I find myself almost always taking shotguns. I love this D110 though, because the shots, the firing speed isn't that bad, and the reload time isn't that bad for this weapon either. So, pretty good weapon overall. So let's go ahead and go back here a second, and then let me show really quickly the fast shooting or the fast reload shotgun. I'm not going to take too much time on this, but I just want to show it briefly, just because this shotgun is for if you ever are worried about, like, say, golds or something, that enemies that are constantly charging, you don't have a chance to breathe, then this shotgun is worth taking, because it shoots pretty fast. It doesn't have the highest damage, like I said, but you can reload it in under a second, so you can constantly be firing almost. You just have a brief downtime, so it's very good for that reason. If you ever need constant fire, it's still pretty strong up close, and it's still relatively good on range. It's just not as good, and you can hold on the trigger on this thing, which is nice as well. So, I mean, it's still good enough damage. It's just a little bit. It's just gonna take a little bit longer to fight with, but so yeah, those are the shotguns, amazing weapons. And now let's move on to another column here. Now, his snipers this time around are very, very average. If anything, I would say they made a very high increase to his close range fighting and a decrease to his range fighting. Now you can no longer take two of the same snipers. So you can't take two Lysanders, two of the same Lysanders at least, and then shoot, switch. But even if you could, this thing does under 7,000 damage per shot, and that's every 3 seconds you can shoot this. So if you took two of those, that's what, 14,000 damage every 3 seconds. So, or not every 3 seconds. Yeah, every 3 seconds, 14,000 damage. So divide that by 3, and you're not doing that high of damage per second. You're actually doing more damage per second with this sniper. But you have to unfortunately pull the trigger with this one, and the timing just doesn't feel right with it, trying to get the right timing on it. So this thing does a little bit over 4,000 damage per second, so that's his best sniper. Now in 4.1, that would have been fine damage, but in this game, the things have scaled up, and damage has scaled up in weapons to where this is a very underwhelming weapon. So we'll talk about his DLC snipers later, but yeah, very underwhelming sniper this time around. The Stringer has made it back, but it's only 13,500 damage instead of the 18,900 damage I think it was in EDF 4. That was after a buff though, because in 2025 it wasn't 18,000 damage, I don't believe. But yeah, very average at best is snipers. I usually take the fast shooting sniper if I had to take a sniper. It's decent. Like I said, it's unfortunately the highest level one is this particular one where you have to pull the trigger, whereas the brown one, this one right here, you actually can hold the trigger down, which is nice. I just wish they made the level 84 version, the brown one, where you could hold down the trigger. But yeah, very underwhelming sniper. His rockets are very average at best as well this time around. I would say just his range overall is pretty a drastic hit. It's not like a nerf, but it's more of just very average damage. He still has the Goliath. This one you actually can guide, but very underwhelming damage. 6,000 some damage for one shot with a 5-second reload, whereas, you know, Wing Diver can shoot, you know, 7,700 damage at level 15 and shoot and charge that up every couple seconds. So it's just, compared to other classes, his explosives aren't too good. I really like the E series because it's a very fast shooting rocket, but once again, the DPS is very, very low. So I don't take rockets too often in Inferno, just because of just underwhelming damage. So it's a little bit unfortunate. I mean, it's not like it's useless, but it's not impressive. His missile launchers, however, have received a great increase, so they're actually good now. For example, the MEX-5 Emerald is actually a very good rocket launcher for Inferno now, because it does a lot more. It does more damage this time around, just 900 damage per shot, and you can lock onto more than 5. Even though it's MEX-5, you can lock onto 8 targets. So it's actually a good weapon, and with the addition of items that actually affect your missile launcher, you can increase the lock-on time by 300% on these missiles. You can cause all your missiles to fire onto one target. You can increase the range of your missiles as well with these missile items that he has now. So therefore, it made a a large buff to his missile category, and they're actually good now. So I do find myself taking missile launchers more often. And the Prominence MA is actually good now, believe it or not. In the other game, you would be ridiculed for taking this into battle because it had like a 23-second lock-on and like a 20-second reload. So it was like a 43 seconds just to get one of these things in the air, and it only did, can't remember the damage, if it was around 20,000 as well, 18,000, something like that. I don't remember at this point, but 18,000 or something every 40 seconds. That's terrible. Now you can actually reload this thing in 3 seconds, and you can shoot this thing in 3 seconds. And you can also take an item that allows you to cut that 3 seconds in half as well. So you can get this thing in the air every 4 seconds now. So the Prominence is now very good. So that's pretty cool. And the MLRA actually is kind of cool as well because you have, I think it's maxed out at 45 targets, but the thing is you can lock all these missiles onto one target if you want to. So that's pretty nice as well. So missile launchers are actually good now. So let's take a Prominence and let's take a MEX Emerald here. Now let's take an MLRA to show off, and then we'll take a missile item just to show this what this is like. So this one gives you 300% range and 100% lock-on time increase. So let's take that. Alright, now let's take a mission with... The only negative of the Prominence is you can't have a mission where there's something in the air above the enemies. Like if there's a large mothership above the enemies, the missile will hit the ship instead of the enemies. So you need to have open skies to fire the Prominence. But let's take it on this mission. That's fine. But it's pretty fun now to use, and I'm very happy that they made that change because it was literally worthless. Well, not, I mean, I would say 0.1% of the time you could find use for that Prominence. Like if you had a mission where you could literally hang back in the corner while other people are fighting up front, and you could just fire. But even then, it's just you would need a beacon gun. Okay, so as you can see, I'm already locked on. It's already in the air, and then the reload time is only 3 seconds, so not bad at all. Look at that, how fast you can fire this thing. And that's 22,000 some damage into the air coming down the target. That wasn't my missile, unfortunately. That was an air raid. But we'll wait for my missile to land so we can see it a little easier. But as you can see, you can rain these things down quite a bit, which is pretty nice. So I'm very happy with this. There you go, you can see it coming down in there. They need to quit doing air raids because they're ruining my video. There we go, you can see the missile coming down there. But this missile is very fun to use. It's good on colonists, good on cosmonauts. This even can be good on some group enemies if you have a chance to fire from far away. You can hit a large group of enemies and it'll kill quite a few as it lands. And the only negative is, of course, if that target dies and the missile is locked on, it's not going to land. And then, of course, the MLRA, which is pretty crazy, or not? Yeah, MLRA. You can. This is a 100% lock on time, so it's a little bit faster, or it's twice as fast as it normally is. But it's not the highest damage, but it is pretty fun and good for stun locking spiders and so forth. And also, like I said, you can put all these missiles onto one target if you want to as well. So, pretty unique as far as what he can do with his missiles now. So, very happy with that. And I do find uses for the missiles quite a bit. Alright, so I would say so far the main thing that I will find myself taking is something from the shotgun category. And then I usually don't find myself sniping too much with him. I would take either missiles or some other kind of other kind of weapon, which let's go on to the next category here. The Stampede has made it back, and I would say it's still a useful weapon, but it's still the detriment is, of course, a 6-second reload. But there's a time and place for it. 30,000 damage, burst damage, if you need it for crowds or whatever. And also the big fireball has made it back. So the big fireball is still very useful. And if you haven't used it before, it's just one large fireball, and you reload it in 23 seconds. It has a large radius to it, and it shoots pretty straight this time around, which isn't bad. And it does decent damage. I mean, 21,000 is not terrible. I mean, obviously, for that damage to actually hit the target, all that fire has to be hitting the target, which is not going to happen. So you're not going to be doing 20,000 damage if you stick an enemy. but you will be doing. It's more for crowd control. So let's take this underground here and show it really quickly here. Alright, so here's the Stampede. We'll use that to clear out these enemies here at the beginning first. And then we'll move in. So still a pretty good weapon, good burst damage, but I wish the reload time was a little bit shorter. I don't understand why it needs to be 6 seconds. I think it could be get away with like 4 seconds and be fine. It wouldn't be broken by any means. But yeah. That's the Stampede. Still a good weapon. Still pretty useful at times. But let's take this fireball here, because this is very good for underground. And I use it sometimes also above ground when you want to do, like, if it's like a bunch of green ants. They love to run into the fire, so that's pretty nice. But it's good for like closing off an area. Say if you're underground, you need to close off an area from a bunch of golds. You can just shoot an area, and then the enemies have a tough time getting through, so your other classes can be fighting as you're like just reloading in the background and constantly putting out crowd control in front of them to help them out. So pretty useful item for underground missions for sure. And it's decently powerful. I mean, this can kill the enemies just by itself, the fire alone, as long as you have someone to clean up the few enemies that get through. It's pretty strong. So, and you can constantly have this thing out as long as you're reloading in the background. So, pretty nice. But yeah, fireballs made it back. Still good. I will find myself taking a Stampede once in a while as well. Unfortunately, the grenades are a little bit too weak for Inferno, just like in the past games. They're okay on the lower difficulties, but on Inferno, the damage is just not quite high enough. There's the DNG-9 has made it back, but they needed like a level 80 or 90 grenade because this thing only does, I think it's around 7,000 damage, 7,000-ish damage when it's maxed out. It has a 42-meter blast, sure, but one thing they changed is you can no longer cancel the animation of this throw. So that's one thing. So you're stuck in the animation for like 4 seconds. And the damage is very underwhelming. I mean, the blast radius is nice, but for Inferno, you're not going to find it too useful. He has another grenade that has a 10-second detonation, but it bounces a lot. And like they said, these grenades are okay on lower difficulties, but Inferno, I rarely take them. So that's too bad. They needed a better, like a DNG-10 or something. Let's see, what else? The Super Acid Gun has made it back. It's no longer the highest damage per second, but for level 58, it's probably going to be your highest damage per second. This time it actually has a higher range. You can actually increase this range quite substantially so that it shoots a lot straighter than the previous game. And it does quite a bit of damage still. So, a good weapon for like hardest or hard, if you can actually use this on hard, I'm not sure. But pretty strong weapon, and still pretty nice. I still would take it on lower difficulties. What else? The Burst Firecracker has also made it back. It's still good. It's pretty strong for its level, and level 54 only. And this thing does, I think it's over 9,000 damage. I don't have mine maxed out, but it's like a Stampede with no reload, so that's pretty nice. It definitely stuns enemies. It kind of knocks them into the air as well, so it's good for like backpedaling and throwing on crowds. So I still find myself taking that weapon as well. Let's go ahead and take that on a mission here. Let's take it on this mission. So like I said, the Burst Firecracker I do like to use for crowds to backpedal. It kind of stuns them, which I'll show you here. But my acid gun isn't maxed out, but when it's maxed out, it actually shoots very, very straight. Mine kind of shoots similar to the previous game right now, but mine isn't maxed out. My friend actually has his close to maxed out, and it shoots pretty straight, which is pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy with the acid gun this time around. That is a change that they made. And here's the Stampede, or aka Burst Firecracker. You can just keep throwing this thing, which is nice, and you can backpedal and just throw and keep constant stun lock on the enemies, constant, pretty high damage. 9,000 damage is nothing to laugh about. I mean, it has more than that if it's maxed out, but it does pretty high damage, pretty good. So definitely something to keep in mind to take. You know, it's definitely worth taking in lower difficulties at least. But yeah, pretty nice. And then the acid gun here is still strong, but the reload time's a little bit long on it, unfortunately. Let me use this acid gun here on the frogs. I think this thing, I'll take a look when I get back to the menu, but I think it was similar damage to the previous game, whereas around, I want to say like 5,000-ish damage a second, or 6,000, I don't remember exactly. Reload time's a little bit long, but once you get this thing's range a lot better, then it's a lot more enjoyable to use, because you don't have to keep aiming up and not being able to see the enemy as you're shooting it. Alright, let's go back here. Alright, and let's look at the damage really quickly. It's 81, mine's not maxed out, 81 times 6, so close to 5,000 damage per second. Probably a little bit over when it's maxed out, so not too bad. Alright, but now there's a big change that's added to his meta, because now that Ranger has a sprint item, he has the ability to increase his sprinting speed. So, for example, you can either take high acceleration and have your max sprint at 150%, or you can just not worry about your acceleration at all and take 200% running speed, which I prefer. So I'll take one of those. But they gave Ranger the C70 bombs this time around, as well as the impulses. Impulses are unfortunately not the greatest in most circumstances, but C70s are very, very strong. It does over 14,000 damage, you get 11 of them. 45 meter blast, 5.5 second reload. So I'm glad they gave them to Ranger, because Air Raider didn't have really a use for them with his air raids, but Ranger definitely can take use of these for sure. So let's take one of those. Let's see, yeah, let's just go ahead and take one of these. The thing with this is, now that he can sprint, you can trigger some enemies, and then you can run down some main streets and have the enemies chase you, especially like colonists and cosmonauts, and then you can set up your bombs as a trap and then have them walk into it, and then you can be, you know, pulling them into your traps. So it's a very useful strategy for Ranger now, where you would just say, like, put them in this intersection, and then you would pull the enemies, let them see you, and then you would run away or just be far away and looking down this main street, wait for them to get to that intersection, and then set them off as a trap. So very, very strong strategy for Ranger now, and I find myself using this an awful lot, even with a sprinting item, or even with a motorcycle can also be useful. So pretty cool in that respect. And now that he can run very fast, he can actually get away to do his grenades, or you can just have enemies chasing you, drop them down with your high acceleration sprint, and then once you're in the safe distance from the blast, you can set them off and then do it again. So, and since they reload fast, very strong damage per second for Ranger, so pretty nice. I would say this is definitely one of the highest used items, I would say, for Ranger for me, would be the shotgun and the C70 bomb strategy with Ranger now. So that's pretty cool now. I definitely like that addition to his fighting. He also does have the ability to heal still, and now that's definitely part of the meta still as well. He has healing bombs. They're a little bit underwhelming with healing amount, but it's fine usually for what you're going to need. The benefit of this is it has a 54 meter blast, so it pushes enemies away very substantially with this healing, and you can heal your friends very easily, including yourself. And you have, I'm not sure what the max is, but I have 11 right now, so pretty crazy. So useful, as well as the Reverser X, which is also a good healing, where you can just, let me take one of each of these just to show briefly. You can heal yourself with the Reverser X as well. So let's just take a quickly on this mission. If you aim down at the ground or against a wall, you can heal yourself, and if someone is standing right next to you, you actually can heal both yourself and someone else with the Reverser X with the same shot, which is this one right here. So you would just go to the same spot with a friend and just aim down at the ground and heal yourself and them, or go against a wall and do the same thing, just have them stand right next to you, and you can get twice the healing amount for the same gun, because it hits you and the friend. And then of course the healing bomb, huge blast, and it's kind of like your panic button. I definitely find myself taking the healing bomb an awful lot on Inferno as well. Look at that. Car is floating. So like this is for like if you take a shotgun, you're fighting up close range, you get a little bit overwhelmed by something, you can't get away, you shoot the ground. Oops, wrong one. Shoot the ground, it knocks them away, and you can keep fighting and continue. So, pretty useful. Huh, I never noticed that. The reverse bomber kind of blows stuff into the air and it stays in the air. Huh, interesting. But yeah, that's definitely part of the meta as well. As far as the vehicles go, because now that Ranger has vehicles, I would say that they're not very useful from my experience as a part of his best weapons. The EMC tank is super cool, but very underwhelming. I find myself not taking this much at all, just because the damage seems very underwhelming for Inferno. I wish they would have made a DLC version of it, but they didn't. A stronger version. And the railguns, I mean, they're still good. They're similar to the previous game. It's 15,000 damage every 3 seconds, so 5,000 a second. So it's probably his best sniper rifle, maybe. I mean, I think his fast shooting sniper is probably better to take with a running item than to take a railgun where you can't use a sprint. But, I mean, it's okay, but it's pretty underwhelming damage. I would say they would need to double the damage of the railgun for me to consider taking it, honestly. So that's a little bit unfortunate. His helicopters are like molasses slow. I don't understand why they're so slow. Even the best one is just ridiculously slow. His brute is okay. It definitely is a use for that with your friends. If you have another person to use the gun, it can be useful to hide up in the air and just take out some high targets while you have a chance. But definitely don't find myself taking it too often. And then motorcycles are pretty good. They're a little bit tough to use, but if you can get good at them, they are better than a sprint because they're a lot faster. And you can definitely get away from the enemy and use the C-70 bomb tactic, or you can just get away to a snipe or whatever. But definitely I would say the motorcycles are part of the meta as well. Let's take a sniper and let's just start up here. Actually, do I have... Let's take a different sniper because I want to actually get my motorcycle. You know what? What I'll do is I'll yeah, I'm gonna change my sniper out because I want to kill him fast, so I can call my motorcycle out. Let's just use this weapon, and I will play it on hard so I don't have to worry about taking too long here to get my motorcycle out. I'm not definitely the best motorcycle driver. I don't use it enough to practice enough to use it to get good, but it is definitely a useful weapon if you can get good at it. But this thing is actually good on hard, but that's about it. Not enough damage otherwise. Alright, let's kill these enemies really quickly. This is definitely a cool sniper. It shoots through enemies and it shoots in like a fan pattern, but it's just not enough damage, unfortunately, to be worth it. Unfortunately, on Inferno at least. All right. And the motorcycle. I wish the motorcycle would have a little bit more health. I mean, 6,600 damage is not terrible, but unfortunately things do have fuel, so you have to be careful with that. But these can be good, you know, just to get away from the enemy. It's a very fast vehicle. And then you can get off, and you can either put your C-70 bombs down, or you can snipe down, you know, major roads, targets, and then when they get close, you can just get back in and get away and continue. So this definitely can be a useful tactic. The machine gun, unfortunately, are in the front of the vehicle, and they aim very low, so it's a little bit unfortunate weapon for the motorcycles. I think it would be better if they were on the sides, shooting out the sides or out the back or something, but it's mainly just for mobility. So yeah, it's pretty nice. Let's briefly talk about the DLC weapons here really quickly, because that kind of changes everything for Ranger. Let's cover the snipers first. For his snipers are very average, but the DLC are actually pretty decent. And the reason is his two best ones actually both shoot through enemies, so that's pretty nice. So he has a new Lysander. This Lysander does shoot through enemies, which is different. It does 11,000 damage per shot, so decent damage per shot. And he also has one of these, which is a fast shooting stringer. It shoots about 4,000 damage per shot, and you can shoot 1 per second almost. Very quick reload. So it's not the highest damage per second, it's around 4,000-ish, but it does shoot through targets, and that's what makes it pretty beneficial. And it's very, very accurate. And then he has a fast shooting sniper as well that does a decent damage per second. It does, what, 8 times 6, so close to 5,000 damage per second. Well, actually over 5,000 damage per second with a good range. Just the reload time is a little bit negative, but these 3 snipers make him an above average sniper, so that's kind of nice for DLC at least. And you can also take 2 Lystanders this way. If you want to take like the 112 and then take his other one, level 82, you can do the shoot switch tactic since you have 2 different snipers. So that's a nice change for the DLC. As well as he has a decent missile launcher as well for the DLC, which is nice. This is like a prominence almost in that it shoots straight up in the air and comes down the target, which is nice. So that's pretty cool. It's decent damage as well. So it fires very fast, so you can constantly be firing this missile launcher compared to the MEX-5. But the biggest change is in his machine gun category and his shotgun category. Pretty much on DLC, the most the weapons you're going to see mainly for Ranger is the fusion blaster, and you're going to see the explosive shotgun for Ranger. These 2 weapons are absolutely monstrous. They kind of just break open the class, just crazy. This thing does over 18,000 damage per second, and it has a 7-second reload only. It has a 679 meter range, so it doesn't shoot through targets though. I mean, it doesn't do everything, but it does. I think it was close to 300,000 damage total if you shoot the whole magazine. And just the range alone makes this his best sniper. It makes it his best machine gun. It makes this his best weapon. I mean, nothing comes close to 18,900 damage per second at a 679 meter range. So a little strong, I would say, but still pretty crazy. And then this shotgun. It's absolutely ridiculous. I thought it wouldn't be too good for crowds since it doesn't shoot through enemies, but because of the explosive damage on it, 3.7 meter blast. No, that's the reload. It doesn't. Oh, 4 meter blast on the shotgun. It actually can stun crowds and just destroy them. It's great because there's no damage fall off, so you can shoot colonists and cosmonauts with this thing, and it will stun them and it'll just destroy them so far away from the 180 meter range this thing has. And mine isn't maxed out, but it shoots over 1 per second as well when it's maxed out. So you're going to see these 2 weapons, explosive shotgun and the fusion blaster, mainly on DLC missions, because they're just so strong. Let's briefly show this off. I didn't mean to take the difficulty hard, but it's not going to matter at this point because whether I'm playing on hard or Inferno, they're going to die just as fast with this. Let's see. So this thing is just like the Fusion Blaster in EDF 4, but you can reload it, and pretty crazy. Very quick reload. I'm sure it's 7.4 seconds, but for considering the damage, don't look at that, please. Considering the damage, it's the reload time is not a big deal. And then of course this explosive shotgun, which shoots explosive rounds and then they just blow up, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Very, very strong, and the reload time isn't that bad either. So let's go ahead and pull some of these enemies here. I want to shoot the explosive shotgun on the frog because it's crazy what happens to him when he gets hit on hard or on low difficulties. It's kind of, you'll see here. Let's go ahead and shoot him here. See what happens. Okay, I guess it was a little bit too much damage because I don't want the initial shot to kill him. I want the explosive shot to kill him, because they just go flying when you hit them with the. Let's retreat and take out Inferno really quickly. I think it'll do it on Inferno, but it's pretty crazy when the explosive rounds actually kill them. Their bodies just go flying sometimes with the explosive shotgun. But yeah, I would say Fusion Explosive Shotgun is the meta for Ranger. If you're not if you have limits off, but if you have limits on, then it's not, you're not able to take these into the main campaign. Okay, yeah, that should work if I get closer to the colonists here. But this fusion blaster is absolutely just ridiculous. I wish they would have made the range a little bit lower, honestly. The reason I care so much about balance is not because I want a balanced game necessarily. It's more because I want options to take different weapons into battle. I don't like when there's just one weapon only to take into battle because it's so good. I like variety, so that's the reason I like balance. Where did those colonists go? Okay, there's one. He's hiding. I thought there was two though. Where's the second one at? Maybe he died already. Was that him back there? Yeah, okay, that's bad. I want to get this one though because he's the one that has more health. Because I want to try something here. Come on. Rolling Ranger coming through. A little closer. A little closer. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the greatest example, but yeah, they just go flying when the explosions go off, so yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, overall, I think Ranger class is still a challenging class, which is what I was wanting, but he's got a lot more options this time around. I would say definitely shotguns are the go-to almost all the time. I always take at least one shotgun probably for every mission because the penetration is just ridiculous. He hits so many enemies with the shotguns now, and they're so strong. And the reason they're able to make them so strong, which is cool, is having the damage effect by range allows them to really crank up the damage up close and make the damage further or lesser far away, so therefore they can make those numbers higher. Like, say for example, if they didn't have range included in the game, then they would have to lower the damage of the shotgun overall, because at 340 meter range it'd be doing 634 times 17. That'd be too much. So because of the addition of the range stat, it allows them to crank up that close damage number, and that's what makes the shotgun so strong this time, and I love them so much. And so I would say shotgun is the main part of the meta, and then missiles, or it's your second weapon, it depends on the mission, but usually missiles or C-70 bomb tactic or healing bomb. Healing bomb is very common for Inferno runs. Fireball, like those kind of things are still good part of the best weapons for Ranger. It's just he's unfortunately a little bit average sniper now, but DLC does take care of that. So pretty cool overall. I'm pretty happy with the Ranger class, and a little bit disappointed with the Fusion Blaster because I don't like seeing the same weapon all the time. But other than that, I'd say he's a pretty good all-around class, and with the sprint, it makes him a lot more usable in a lot of missions. So pretty cool. So that'll conclude it for Ranger's meta. I'll be doing Air Raider last here coming up. So once again, thanks a lot for watching, and remember, EDF doesn't leave a man behind, ever. And also, if you'd like to support this channel, please consider liking and subscribing, as it does make a big difference because it helps the videos show up more on the recommended list for people so they can learn about the channel. So thanks a lot.